Good morning. First, let me draw attention to one important issue. In the Skoda Superb II, there was never an engine of the 1.4 TSI series EA211IE with a timing belt, and I am writing about this because such information is uncritically provided by many sources. In practice, a trip to OLX, Odomodo, or mobile.de and a comparison of engine photos is enough, regardless of whether we are talking about a car from the beginning of production, 2008, or from its end, 2015. The 1.4 TSI always looks the same, and it is always a chain EA111 engine. The EA211 engines look completely different at first glance, and only found their way into the Superb III 3V. To the point, the 1.4 TSI EA111 engine was offered in the Skoda Superb II throughout its production period, i.e. from mid-2008 to mid-2015. This basic petrol engine offers 125 HP and 200 Nm, which ensures quite good performance for a basic version. It takes 10.5 seconds to reach 100 km per hour, and the top speed is 204 km per hour. The biggest problem with the 1.4 TSI unit in the Superb, and other models with EA111 engines, is what should be its biggest advantage: the chain-driven timing. Its durability is simply awful for this type of solution, which results, among other things, from the savings that VW wanted to achieve when designing this engine. There is a small consolation in all this. If someone treats periodic timing belt replacement in this engine as a necessity and obviousness, they can be quite happy with such a car, especially since the prices of parts and the operation itself are not the worst, and the durability, although awful for a chain, is generally not worse than the competition with timing belts. There are also failures of variable valve timing or tensioners, but replacing the timing set should also take care of that. The average fuel consumption of the Superb 1.4 TSI for most users oscillates around 7 to 8 L/100 kilometers. Due to the fact that these engines are related and belong to the same family, I am describing them collectively. Let's start again with an important note, although fortunately rather well known. EA888 engines have, unfortunately, nothing in common with the beloved and durable 20-valve 1.8T, which for years has been used in various VW Group models. It is in the case of 1.8 and 2.0 TSI EA888 that you should pay close attention to whether these are the improved ones, because both engines have a clear tendency to consume engine oil in excess of the norm. The problem is that both of these power units belong to the second generation of these engines, Gen 2, in which it was decided to do everything possible to reduce internal resistance as much as possible, among others, in order to reduce fuel consumption. One of the changes compared to the Gen 1 engines was the replacement of pistons and piston rings, the latter with much narrower ones than before. The effects were and still are spectacular. These engines can consume up to 2 liters of engine oil per 1,000 km. This can be fixed, e.g. by replacing the pistons and rings with those from Gen 1, or at least modifying the pistons from Gen 2 in such a way that wider rings can be installed, but it costs money. In addition, we have problems with stretching timing chains, sometimes already at 100,000 kilometers, and carbon deposits. If anyone cares about either of these engines, they should look for Superbs from the end of this generation. According to most sources, these engines were improved, although their factory codes did not change. For the 160 HP 1.8 TSI, it was BZB or CDAA. For the 200 HP 2.0 CCZA. The 2.0 TSI variant appeared in the range 2 years after the start of production of the Superb III TIE in 2010. The average fuel consumption of these versions is around 8.5 to 9 L/100 kilometers. The most economical drivers achieve results of 6 to 6.5 L, more in 1.8, and those with a heavy foot, 10 to 11 L, in both versions. The top engine in the range, and the only naturally aspirated one. Technically speaking, it is a VR6 unit, both cylinder banks fit under one head, the cylinder angle is just 10.6 degrees. Thanks to their large displacement, even from low revs, such Superbs accelerate very efficiently, and no wonder, since they have 260 HP and 350 Nm. This is enough to reach 100 km per hour in 6.4 s and accelerate to 250 km per hour, although it should be noted that there is not a small group of users who write that after getting used to it, they still lack some power. And there may be something to it. 3.6 VR6 units used in other brands had 280 or 300 HP. The Superba variant, marked CDVA, is the weakest. As standard, such Skodas have always had four-wheel drive and six-speed DSG gearboxes. The 3.6 engine is a rather expensive unit to service, but it is also quite durable. Of course, this does not mean that there are no problems, because we are dealing with direct fuel injection and no supercharging. Each model will sooner or later, rather sooner, have a problem with carbon deposits on the intake valves. Sometimes there are reports of problems with ignition coils in the first years, or excessive engine oil consumption. But against the background of 1.8 and 2-liter TSIs, this does not seem to be something particularly serious. The average fuel consumption reported by users is no less than 9-9.5 L/100 kilometers for the 3.6 V6 FSI version, but only the most economical will achieve such values. The standard is 11 to 11.5 L/100 kilometers. Many people easily exceed 13. The presence of this engine would be great news, if not for the small detail that we are talking about the 105 horsepower BLS variant, one of the worst in the 30-year history of the 1.9 TDI. For this reason, it is not worth being particularly interested in it, unless we are talking about some special occasion. There is a risk of the bearings turning or the connecting rod simply breaking. The biggest advantage of the 1.9 TDI engine in the Superb II is the fact that it was offered only for the first 2 years of production, and only in the liftback. As for fuel consumption, it is practically impossible for such a car to use more than 7 L per 100 kilometers during fairly normal driving, and if it is possible, users are not eager to brag about it. Many drivers achieve results of 5.5 L/100 kilometers, or even a little less. But this is probably poor consolation in the face of the unsuccessful design of the engine. The direct successor to the 1.9 TDI engine, also achieving 105 HP and 250 Nm in the Skoda Superb. This is a unit related to the 2.0 TDI engines, and like them, the hero of the Dieselgate scandal, relatively successful and able to cover long distances without serious failures, although considered by many to be too weak to power the top Skoda model. On the side of typical faults, it is worth mentioning here primarily problems with dry DPF filters, especially if someone drives a lot in the city. DPF can fail in such conditions after about 50,000 kilometers. In addition, the durability of the dual-mass flywheel is unsatisfactory, and it is also different with piezoelectric injectors and the exhaust gas recirculation valve, EGR. Depending on the source of information, opinions about the turbocharger vary. You shouldn't be particularly afraid of its failures, but if a failure does happen, regeneration will cost a bit more than in the 1.9 TDI. This is because the turbo in the 1.6 TDI has variable blade geometry. In any case, if the modest performance of such cars is enough for someone, 0-100 km per hour in 12.1 to 12.2 s, maximum speed 194-197 km per hour. It is worth taking an interest in well-maintained examples. Average fuel consumption for 1.6 TDI engines in Superb is around 5 to 5.5 L/100 kilometers, the most economical, and those driving on the highways sometimes go down to around 4 L/100 kilometers. It is relatively difficult to beat 6.5 to 7 L/100 kilometers. Such cars are therefore slightly more economical than the 1.9 TDI version. A similarly risky choice, as in the case of the 1.9 TDI BLS described above, although for different reasons. DPF filters, unit injectors, and oil pumps can cause problems. The consolation is that the heads do not crack here, as in the 16-valve versions of the 2.0 TD IPD engines. The unit used in the Superb 3T is an 8-valve BMP. If something happens in this area, it is more likely a problem with the head gasket. One of the best options for the second generation, Superb. There were 140 and 170 horsepower versions, with the latter being easier to buy. This is due to the fact that the more powerful version had been in production since 2008, while the weaker one joined only at the beginning of 2010. Previously, the aforementioned 140 horsepower TDI-PD engine was offered. Compared to the competition, This is one of the most interesting offers on the market, and one of the most failure-free. Of course, if someone is not bothered by the Dieselgate issue. Of course, you can expect failures of accessories, dual-mass flywheels, turbochargers, or injection system, but within the limits of the norm. Fuel consumption? I'm at your service. The average for both power versions and also for the 2.0 TDI is around 6.5 to 7 L 100 kilometers. Frequent, economical driving on the road can reduce this result to around 5 L 100 kilometers, while the highest average fuel consumption results reported by users are usually from 8.5 to less than 9 L per 100 kilometers. Among these highest results, the 170 HP diesels have a noticeable advantage. Both when it comes to petrol and diesel engines, you can easily find something for yourself. Those who find the 1.4 TSI too weak, the 3.6 FSI too fuel-hungry, and don't want diesel, have it the worst. But apart from that, and apart from the units with unit injectors, the Skoda Superb II offers quite good engines. It's just worth remembering to regularly change the oil not only in the engines, but also in the DSG gearbox, if someone decides to use it. And if you know of any common errors, your comments are welcome.
Camipro Website ist Katalog aller Automarken, Motoren, Getriebe, was bricht und bei welchem Kilometerstand. Welche Pakete können Ihre Tasche hart belasten? Dieses und vieles mehr über Autos erfahren Sie auf Camipro.